first thing we're going to talk about is printing words or phrases in Java. Now, we went over this a little bit in the previous video. However, we're going to go a little bit more in depth right here. All right, as you can all clearly see, I created a new REPL called 2.2 print statements. I deleted that first line of code. That's the default for right here. And now we are first going to talk about how to print words or phrases. So remember from last video, to print words or phrases, you have to have those words or phrases within a set of quotation marks. For example, if I wanted to print the word hello to the screen, I would have to have the word hello inside of quotes. If I run my code and if my line of code is correct and my hello is in quotes, then on this side over here, I should get the desired outcome. As you can see here, we got the word hello. So now what happens if I were to take away these quotation marks? What does the computer spit out then? Well, let's take a look. If I take away the quotation marks around the word hello, then the computer does not recognize the word hello as a word. The computer thinks that the word hello means something else. It thinks that it's some other form of code, also known as a variable. We'll get into variables later on. But because it's not in quotes, the computer's confused and is like, well, what is this? What am I printing right here? And so because of that, we get an error. So now if we want to print a phrase, just going to put that in quotes too. And for the phrase, I'm going to type something like hello there. Now, when we print a phrase, you can see how here you are allowed to have spaces when printing words and stuff, as long as it's inside of our quotes. You can have characters like exclamation points, addition signs, any things like that. So now if I were to run this, print it to the screen, what we should get is this exact phrase right here, hello there. And then the same thing of if I were to take away my quotation marks, I would get an error again. Now, throughout this time, I've been calling everything that's inside of here words or phrases. But the thing is in Java is that there is actually a vocabulary word that is used to describe words or phrases. And these are called strings. So a string is a word or phrase in quotation marks in Java. So this right here, this right here, everything I highlighted is called a string. Another example of a string could just be the word hello by itself, or just a space would be considered a string, or any kind of like symbols and stuff like that. All of these are considered strings. Next up is printing numbers to the screen. All right, so there are two different ways that we can print numbers to the screen. The first way is to put that number inside of quotation marks. For example, if I wanted to print the number 2, and then I put that number 2 inside of quotation marks, then over here, the computer should print out the number 2. The next way you can do it is without quotation marks. Now, the reason why is because when we are printing a number or a variable, and I'll get into later on what a variable is. When we're printing either of those to the screen, you do not have to have quotation marks. It's only when you're printing a word or a phrase, also known as a string, those are the only times when you actually need to use quotation marks. So as you can see here, I ran my code and we got this same outcome of 2. You can also print numbers that have decimals in them to the screen. So I said system.out.print 2.76, and we got that as well. What we can also do is that we can, in a way, stack numbers onto each other. So remember how in the last video, how I printed the word potato, and then after that I printed the word lettuce and how they were smushed together? Well, we can do the same thing with numbers. So this first number is 2.76, and my next number is going to be 3. So when I run this code right here, what I should get is 2.763. The reason why is that this is a system.out.print statement. So it's basically telling, all right, computer, print out the number 2.76. My cursor starts right here, and then we print out 2.76. My cursor stops at the end of 2.76 because there is no ln. Next, we move on to the next line of code, so system.out.print3. My cursor starts here, we print the number 3, and my cursor stops here. Next up is printing mathematical expressions. All right, so moving on to mathematical expressions. So the thing is that print statements in Java can actually act like calculators for us. So you know when you plug in the numbers 2 plus 3 in a calculator, it spits out 5? Well, print statements have the capacity to do the same exact thing. So let's do the example of 2 plus 3. So we're going to write system.out.println 2 plus 3. Now, as you can see here, our 2 and our 3 are not in quotation marks. And because they're not in quotation marks, the computer is going to recognize the 2 and the 3 as actual numbers and not as strings or like a word in a phrase. And this plus sign right here, because the plus sign is not in a quotation mark, the computer is going to recognize this as an addition sign instead of as a string. So if I were to run my code and print this out to the screen, what the computer is going to do is that it's going to actually solve this mathematical expression. It's going to figure out what it's equal to. So if we take a look at the outcome that we get over here, the computer is going to spit out the number 5. So if you have numbers inside of here or any sort of mathematical operation and there's no strings whatsoever, the computer is going to try to print out the most simplest answer possible to what's inside of here. So now let's take a look at subtraction. So system.out.println, let's say we want to do 6 minus 3. Once we do this, we should get the answer 3 because there are no strings in here, so the computer is going to want to simplify this. So when we do this, let's take a look at the outcome we get over here. As you can see here, we got 3. Next up is multiplication. So let's do 4 times 6, and the multiplication sign in Java is an asterisk like this. Once we run our code, I want you guys to think about what is going to be printed to the screen. All right, as you guys can see here, we get the number 24, which is correct. And now the last one we are going to talk about is system.out.println division. So 25 divided by 5. From this, we should get the answer of 5 at the very end. So let's take a look and see if we get that. And we do. Now, the thing is, guys, is that mathematical expressions in Java are not this simple. So there are some kind of parameters or some other conditions that have to be met in order for us to get this perfect little answer like this. For example, if this was, let's say, 3 divided by 4 right here, 3 divided by 4, you would expect the computer to spit out 0.75 because that's what 3 divided by 4 is equal to. However, you can see right here, we get 0. And we'll get into the reasons why this is happening in later videos when we talk more in depth about mathematical operations in Java. But as of right now, I just want to give you guys a little preview of the stuff that you can do with print statements and how you could do some minor mathematical operations inside of them. After this, we're going to just do some quick review questions before we end the video, so make sure you have a fresher pen out so that you can put down the answers. Question 1, print the following to the screen. Hey there, I really like Java. So make sure you guys pause the video really quick, do this in Rappel, and then we'll go over the answer. Okay guys, so for the first one, what we're going to do is that we are going to type out our print statement first. So system.out.print, and then we're supposed to type, hey there. So after this then, we know that we want our words to go to the next line. We want to enter. So right here, we're going to have to put the ln because this forces us to enter. After this, we're going to do our print statement again. Now you could either put ln here or just leave it as print. And then we're going to write, I really like Java. So you have to use two print statements for this, and the top one has to use ln so that when we run this, we're going to print out hey there in the first line, and then we're going to enter. Then we go to our second line, and then it's going to print out I really like Java. So when we run our code, and this may take a moment, here we are. As you can see, hey there, I really like Java. Number 2, print the number to the screen without using quotation marks, negative 234.5. So pause the video, do this in Rappel, and then let's see what we get. Okay, so if we want to print the number negative 234.5 to the screen without using quotation marks, we first have to use a print statement. So now in this case, you can use system.out.println or system.out.print. For both, you will get the same outcome. Now if we're typing our number, we wanted to print it to the screen without quotation marks, you just type the number directly inside of here. So it's negative 234.5. So when we run our code on this side, you should get as an output negative 234.5. All right, last question. Use a print statement and not your own mathematical knowledge to figure out what 568 minus 145 is equal to, and then print the result to the screen. Pause the video and do this in Rappel. Okay, so if we want to figure out what 568 minus 145 is equal to, and we want the computer to solve this and then print it to the screen, we are going to use a print statement. So now for this print statement, you could either use system.out.println or system.out.print. And then inside of our parentheses, we are going to write the numbers 568 minus 145. We're going to put this directly into here, and then what's supposed to happen is that our computer is going to solve what 568 minus 145 is equal to. So if you were to run your code on this side, you should get 423. All right, thank you guys so much for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Any questions or comments, please post them down below. And if you'd like to continue to learn how to code in Java, click subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.